it's a reason why, when there's a war that's happening, you know what I'm saying, the things that they take are cultural artifacts. It's a reason why, you know what I'm saying, they destroy the museums and take the art. You know what I'm saying? They take the sculptures, they take the paintings, they take, the instruments. There's a reason why that happens during war, because art and culture is valuable at that level. You know what I mean? Where it has the power to um provide that extra strength or that extra willpower when you need to, get over the hump on something. And that just speaks to the importance of what we do as creatives. What up, world? It's Dave. Dave has wings, and we're back for another episode of The Living Room. I'm Hugh House's partner, focused on strategy and operations, and I want to kick it to my co-host, my main man, Elliott McKnight.
What's going on, y'all? Elliott McKnight, partner, creative technologist, and creative operations.
No doubt, no doubt. Thank y'all for popping into another episode, man. It's we on a strong run right now, trying to keep things rolling. If you're checking it out, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Other than that, man, what's the latest from the greatest, bro? What you been on?
Man, nothing too heavy, man. We were just in Atlanta last week, which is great. If you don't know, I spent a majority of my early to career up until recently, in time in Atlanta, Georgia, from 2015 to about a year ago. And so was able to go down there for a week, see some people that I am still close with, check it out, see the city, catch the vibe, and it's been good, man. It's been really something that, I've been looking back on in terms of like my life, like a 10-year stretch, and how it's like impacting me over time. And that's really a place where I almost think about it like it's home now. Like now that I've had like a little bit of distance with it, when I come back, it's giving me that feeling. So yeah, man, it's been good other than that, man. But what's going on with you, brother?
Man, ain't nothing, man. Just trying to stay in pocket, trying to hold it all, trying to hold it in the road, as the old folks say, just taking it a day at a time, man. Just getting over. We had a little something run through the crib the last 2 weeks, you know what I mean? A little summer cold situation. So, everybody back healthy now, and just, yeah, man, getting back into the swing of things, from a flow perspective. One of the things I have been thinking about though, I went to my church hosted a men's event on this past Friday, talking to the pastor, because he's a musician. Was just talking about like the potential need for maybe even finding, I don't know if we talked about this up here before, but the potential need for maybe even finding like some creative space or some studio space. I mean, to be able to kind of separate and be able to be inspired and have all your stuff up, and get some clutter out of the crib and that kind of thing, man. So just kind of been thinking through that, looking through that, trying to see if that's going to be a possibility here coming soon. Never had a studio, never had a quote unquote office, but definitely something to be considered for the near future, just because of, limited space at the crib, changing lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, man, just been thinking through that, and then obviously navigating the waters of the change with that we making in the business. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, man, I think that came up maybe about 3 or 4 episodes ago, like kind of early on. But love to know, without prying too much, like where you sitting with it, like what would be an ideal setup? How would that look? What would you be focusing on? Like give the people a little bit more insight to what your practice would look like with that specific, solitary space that would be for your art.
Yeah, bro. I think the main thing is just having a space that just feels like that is inspiring, and having a space that feels like it's designed and designated for you to be like most efficient. I don't think, like, I'm not physically taking any photos really at this point anymore. Like, I'm not doing any like paid photo work at this point in time, really. I mean, I do an event here or there just for like families and close family and friends or something like that to save them some money. So I'm not charging them as much as a regular event photographer would, but it's like, again, just having a space that feels inspiring, even being able to do stuff like this and having a dedicated, spot for it, and a dedicated look, and being able to have like, I mean, I got art that I've collected over the years. I got my own work that I wanted to put up, and little toys and vinyl and all these different types of things. So, I think just having a dedicated space to be able to go and lock in that has that look and feel that you own, like in the same way that I think, you may think about like a dad having like a man cave at the crib, or the same way you thought about your room as a teenager. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of thinking about it from that perspective, creatively and business wise, like having something that like walks in and like, okay, this it sets the tone for what I'm supposed to be doing while I'm in this space. And that's kind of just how I'm thinking about it. Is like, how do you have a space that is allows for you to be most efficient, most optimized? You don't have to move a bunch of stuff around. Like you go to that space and it's already set up in the way that you want to do. Right. Like I also visited one of the homies who has a studio at a spot out here. He ended up with like two separate rooms or whatever. He was like, yeah, bro, like I even got the game in here. Like, so if I go from like making music to like, what I'm saying, I may hop on the game for a little bit to decompress. Like, he's like, mainly if I'm hopping on the game, like, I'm not even at the crib, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Mm,
like a completely separate world where all of those interests can really like live and flourish for real. So, I mean, it's really, I don't know, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, man. It's like, it would just be dope to be able to have, have the lighting set up, have this, have that, be able to flip a couple switches and change the mood or do whatever you got to do, be able to take calls. Because right now it's like I'm sitting at the kitchen table, or I'm sitting at like a partial office. You know what I'm saying? Where I got like some stuff in the corner, but like a lot of these crib is behind me. So it's it's just the ebbs and flows, man. And thinking about like how do you build a space that can feel that creativity, where you walk in and you feel inspired to do what you're supposed to do, type situation.
absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense, man. And even to the point that you made about something that's already set up, I think that's like underrated in terms of creating consistency and high production like within your practice, because there's so much inertia, so much of like an uphill battle just to like, it's like when you're staring at a blank canvas or you're staring at a white piece of paper, it's like, oh, all right, where do I start? How do I get into a groove? How do I get into motion? But once you had those setups and those plugins, everything's kind of situated where you like it, the seating's where you like it, the lighting's where you like it, it just makes that hump a little bit smaller so you can really get into the groove and actually get into creating. And I think that yeah, again, that's just something that's just underrated in terms of like value when you're talking about getting a space on your own. So that just kind of clicked in my brain when you were talking.
Yeah, I remember too. Randomly, I was watching. I forgot what I was watching. Matter of fact, but it was something. Oh, it was There's a show. There's a guy who wrote a book, and his whole thing is about like living your rich life. I think I think the title of the book is literally "I Will Teach You to Be Rich" or something like that. And I forget the guy's name, but he does a lot of like podcasting. He's got like a course, has a book, like I just said or whatever. And he has a TV show on Netflix, I think. And he had a couple that he was working with, and one of them, she was a lady who had like a business and she was like making things or whatever. And he was talking about like just in terms of where you're investing your money. And he was talking to her about like, I think she was gonna rent like a spot at like a makers community, like a co-working makers lab, so she would have access to some tools, have her own dedicated workspace, have this, have that. And he was talking about like, if you spent this $200 or $300 a month to have access to this space and these tools, how much more efficient would you be in your business? How much money could you actually make? You know what I mean? As opposed to like, spending it on the bag or whatever it is that you may, frivolously, may make you feel good and temporarily in the moment, like investing that money every single month and coming in here and investing in your craft. What can that do to the output, and how could that grow and scale your business? And being able to make those investments and including those things in the budget, how it's important to include those things in the budget, because those are things that we tend to put off, like, oh, well, I don't need to pay for space. I can just like, again, do it at the kitchen table, or I can just do it over here, over there. And it just leads to these inefficiencies, or to your point, these barriers, or it makes it hard to get in a groove because it's just not conducive for you to do that work. So there's all types of examples of the importance of being able to have some type of a studio. I think eventually, as I get older and art becomes more of a central space or a central kind of like revenue stream, where I really want to invest in becoming more of a full-time artist, and having a working studio consistently for the puzzle and photography work is definitely something I could see myself like not just wanting but needing, for a lot of the reasons of what we kind of outlined already.
Mm, Yeah, that definitely makes sense, man. And I love that, man. I think that should be a goal for all of us as we, like you said, as you start to grow, you start to build out. It's like, bro, getting at the table, or even myself, it might be in a room right now, and it's kind of a space, but it's still within. And I believe I mentioned this before. Like it's still within, somebody else's space. So just have like, if I wanted to make a beat, right? Like sometimes I want it mad loud, just to really hear maybe the drums, or I might just be inspired at that time, or I want to listen to something like in a loop. Like, cause some people just don't like that. Like the process of creating sound, like you're gonna hear the same 4 seconds for like an hour and a half. Like, bro, that drives some people crazy. But for me, that's fine. But it having that space and having that freedom to not have to have like that little bug in the back of your head, like, oh, maybe I should turn it down. That kind of takes you out of the moment, makes things again a little bit easier for
Yeah,
you to be able to create and be able to get into a groove to express yourself.
for sure. For sure. But yeah, man, I wanna jump right into what we are kind of chatting about today. It's a something that I think we both super passionate about and super meaningful. It's just like the importance of black media and black art, black film, black music, like just the importance of um African Americans' contributions to these various genres, and really not necessarily focused on what it means. Um in a sense of like representation or in response to oppression, but like what it does for us internally is kind of it's been sitting with me super heavy. I know you mentioned offline a while back that you had been on just like a Tubi run, and that kind of like I was like, I do know I've seen in passing, and obviously they streamed the Super Bowl up there and all that kind of stuff, so we had an account and all that, and I've been looking at it here and there. And it's like been a couple of days like, oh, I'll bookmark that, oh, I'll bookmark that, but I really did like a dive to see what was really up there a couple of days ago, and I ended up watching Prison Song with like Q-Tip, Mary J. Blige, Babito Garcia, Nori. Like it's just one of those like hood classics that like you flip on BET at like 10 o'clock, in the 2000s it might be on, or you might at 8 o'clock it might be like just a movie that they showing at night. It's up there with like South Central and Baby Boy and like all those things. It's just one of those, but it's a very interesting film because it's about the life of Q-Tip plays is the main character, and they start with him as a kid and they end up with him as an adult, and they kind of show his life progression and how the things that he interacts with throughout his life kind of push him or funnel him into the prison system. And he's also, but on the flip side of that, he's also just like an extremely talented and gifted artist and photographer. And you get, and I don't want to spoil it if you want to go check it out, but you just see that what that experience is like, and how so many of these outside factors had an effect on where he ended up in his life, and how some unfortunate decisions and some mistakes and some other things kind of lead to this outcome. Ultimately, his work ends up being shown in a gallery, but not in a way that you would have expected. So that's the kind of the way where I'll leave it, just in case. But what it had me doing was reflecting on like what that, like the seeds that planted in me as like a 10, 12, 13-year old, kind of watching this, maybe even sneaking to watch it at a certain degree, and just kind of how that kind of informed my thoughts and how I interacted with people as I got older, because I grew up in a pretty good situation, right? Like I grew up, my father passed when I was younger, not to due to anything crazy, really, like tragic accident. And so I grew up in a single parent household. Grew up with an older sibling, an older sister. My mom worked really really hard, to make sure that we had what we needed. She's doctorate, 2 master's degrees, the whole nine. Worked in education her entire life, and really to make sure she provided for me and my sister. So I didn't, some of these struggles that I saw that were depicted within a lot of the black cinema that was around us growing up, or in those hood classics where there's paid in full, like that stuff wasn't my present reality. But as you start to get older, you start to brush up against that, right? Because you have cousins and you have people that you go to school with, and you got homies of homies, you know what I'm saying? So you're never really like, it's on some 6 degrees of separation. You're only a degree or two away from some of the stuff that you're seeing depicted, right? So you still kind of have to know how to interact or move, you know what I'm saying, in those spaces, if you're, cognizant of what's going on around you. So, and I think honestly, a lot of black media, black film, art, music, across the spectrum, right? Like not just thinking about things from the struggle in the hood and all these different things, but even when I think about like what it meant for me to hear some of Kanye's early stuff, or what it meant for me to like be really, really into Common, you know what I'm saying, when I was in high school, or really, really into, I mentioned on previous episode, really, really into Lupe. Like these experiences that are being shaped through these different mediums and contexts kind of all feed into that sense of self. Right. And once you start to really do some formal history and, you know what I mean? Like we had a required African American studies course at Winston. Like once you start to do some of the formal history and knowledge and understanding, and you get beyond the transatlantic slave trade, and you start to know what was happening beforehand, and even when you start to even dig even deeper into the roots and what has existed in the states, you know what I'm saying? Like even beyond what we've understand, and once you start to recontextualize some of that, it really starts to really build up that sense of self, and it really starts to change how you feel about your experience and your family and the people around you and your race. And I mean, I'll pitch it to you after this, but it's a reason why, when there's a war that's happening, you know what I'm saying, the things that they take are cultural artifacts. It's a reason why, you know what I'm saying, they destroy the museums and take the art. You know what I'm saying? They take the sculptures, they take the paintings, they take, I mean, the instruments. There's a reason why that happens during war, because art and culture is valuable at that level. You know what I mean? Where it has the power to um provide that extra strength or that extra willpower when you need to, get over the hump on something. And that just speaks to the importance of what we do as creatives. But so I mean, that's a long-winded like tee up, but I'm curious what's coming up for you as I'm kind of going through that, because it's been firing. It's been sitting on me the last few weeks, and everything that I've watched and listened to the last few weeks, it's just been resonating like more and more and more.
Yeah, man. I think when you speak about that, it just talks about how, when I was going through the Tubi, run, I'm still in the run. It just kind of reminded me of like how important our art is, and like how impactful it is, and it was at that time. And just like how blessed we were to be able to see that during that time. One centralized location, maybe it'd be on BET or something like that, for us to be able to view this on a regular basis. And when I would see that, I was watching like Paid in Full recently, and just seeing like that film and being like, wow, like this was crazy. And we talked a little bit about offline of like, the impact of Wood Harris and like his position within, Hollywood and the film industry, just like how great that was when, he's dropping like classic after classic after classic. Like you going from, Remember the Titans into Paid in Full into The Wire, and then the Next Day Air. I just watched Next Day Air again over the weekend as well too. So I'm seeing like the pre and post The Wire, Wood Harris, and just like that impact that we see. And we're just seeing, like you said, it's important for us to kind of like look at that, because we're seeing the black person have like the resourcefulness of us, right? Like I've seen even with the character Q-Tip plays in the film, it's just like, man, he went from, like you said, being like almost like this prodigy, in the hood, that was like, making art, doing photography, being this close to getting to a spot where he was going to be good for life. But even after the fact, like that didn't stop what was going on. Like he actually made it look like better work when he was in prison, and he was like kind of
Yeah,
taking like,
yeah, it was he switched mediums and went crazy.
yeah, he started paying, and it was like, yo, you going crazy, bro. So and just like the scale that he was able to work at, and just seeing it, like you said, seeing it now, and just like how we're viewing it and how we're being positioned. I just love what Tubi is doing. And even like the post you put up about, the collaboration with Tubi and gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now, I'm bugging out. What's the platform?
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. Yes, with Kickstarter, and just putting in position of, having more, films and works and things like that, just kind of being situated for us to be able to view. Because yeah, man, I think that, like, to your point too, I had a similar situation in the background. Like my parents did well for themselves. Or, we was middle class. We weren't rich or anything like that, but it was like that duality of being like just close enough to a situation where you would see what you were seeing on TV, you're seeing, or hearing in rap songs and things like that, but not having to directly deal with on a day to day. But you might go to the homie crib, and they might be living a little bit different than you are, or you might have to go to school, and you and your classmates might be in a different situation than you are. And so just seeing how that all comes together, and we were talking a little bit about this as well, is that, like, how, these these clothes and the scripts and these lines that we have, it changes culture itself. You know, we was making jokes about like lines from Paid in Full, and those are things I could say that to you. And if I say that to you, even if I just met you 5 minutes ago, if I said a line that you know, instantly we locked in because you have to be a certain type of person. You have to have like a certain type of background to even know what I'm talking about. And that instantly like kind of just like, all right, yeah, bro. Okay, he's solid. You know what I'm saying? I don't know him from a can of paint, but he knows something that I know and we can connect on this level. And art allows for that, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
communication to happen at a deeper level or even like a little bit more of a subliminal level, you know, to break the ice. And it's important to keep that core and to keep that position in there because it allows for us our stories to be told at a scale that it's beyond our immediate city, school, friendships that we have, but on a grander scale. So that's what comes top of mind. I know I gave like a little long winded myself, but that's how I'm feeling.
Nah, man, definitely. You touched on a bunch of stuff that I want to get to, but I want to definitely put a pin and specifically lean back onto the since we Tubi has been a central part of kind of what inspired this conversation really. You talking about the Tubi and Kickstarter partnership, just in case anybody hasn't heard, they just launched it at Cannes Lions a couple weeks ago. But it came announcement came out and it was rolled out and they did like a panel and some other things that Kickstarter and Tubi were coming together for a partnership. Some of the top grossing films that are being fundraised via Kickstarter. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter is, it's a platform that allows for you to crowdsource or community source payment for your ideas and fundraise for your ideas. So you put up a project on Kickstarter, you normally would make a video, put up any renders or graphics or photos or anything, and then there are incentive packages for people to donate towards your project. Once your project reaches its funding goal, it's on you to complete the project and then also deliver those incentives to the folks that may have given at various levels. So you may be like $5 is like just a shout out, $10 might get you like a sticker and a t-shirt, $20 might get you this, da 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 da. So you have people that are launching products and films and everything that you can think of. It's like a creator's resource for that. There's other platforms to it that are similar, like Indiegogo and things like that. But again, what's making Kickstarter very unique and what is really dope is they do have a younger black male CEO. His name is Everett Taylor. I believe his last name is Taylor. And he's taken the helm at Kickstarter a couple of years ago. And it was crazy because I brushed shoulders with bro. That's how I found out about who he was right before it all happened. Because he had a CMO role at one of the major like art platforms, and Reginald Sylvester had did a show at the Harvey B. Gantt Center, and I popped out to that show. And super inspired. Reginald was, had a few ties to the city just because there were a couple smaller boutiques that carried Rare Panther back in the day, and he was one of the guys who started Rare Panther. So that's how I got hip to him in the first place. Was that he was one of the minds behind Rare Panther. Then he kind of pivoted once Rare Panther kind of ended, and they kind of brought that to a natural end in their last collection. He pivoted into art and started doing abstract work at like a very large scale, and started doing museum shows and gallery shows and stuff like that. So we ended up having one of his shows at the Gantt, and so a lot of us who were tapped in like that were on the streetwear scene when he was running Rare Panther, kind of were like excited because it was like, yo, like what I mean, this is one of the guys from one of our contemporaries that's really killing it, what I mean, showing up and doing something at a high level. And I was in the gallery and somehow ended up in the same space as Everett, walking past him. Had no idea who he was at the time, bro. Had no idea. And we ended up having like a very small exchange, very quick conversation. And he was like, "Yeah, my name's Everett, da da da." And because we were talking, somehow we ended up talking about travel. Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, I was like, you travel a lot?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm just came from here, about to go here, leaving here and going there, and then after that, I got to go here and here." And that should have been a trigger to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, this dude is
Yeah.
like somebody. You feel me? But I wasn't in that. I just wasn't paying attention, bro. Like I don't know what was going on. It was just kind of like this kind of like innocent interaction. So then I'm tapping through Nigel's stories. I mean Reginald's stories. I said Nigel's Professor. That's the doggone BMX, right? I'm tripping. I'm tapping through Reginald's stories, and I'm like, oh, that's the dude I talked to. Everett. I click it, and I'm like, yo, what? I just had a conversation with like, I forget what platform it was that he was at before, but he's like, bro, he was the whole time. Let me look that joint up real quick because I'm finna feel crazy for talking about bro and not really being able to like give the appropriate kind of like credence to his resume because he was again his role that he was in was like nutty, like it blew my
Yeah.
mind. You know what I'm saying? He was just very yeah, very humble, very laid back type of a guy. He's had like a very non-traditional trajectory within tech, within the blends of like tech, art, and e-commerce for his background and doing some research about him. And I just, I've been following him ever since. So, oh yeah, it was Artsy. So he was the CMO at Artsy at the time, and he was CMO at Artsy before he took the role as CEO of Kickstarter. So whole time, bro, it just blew my mind. I was like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
This is a testament to you never know who is around and who you're talking to, bro. So one, always be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah.
But two, also just be, remember to be open and genuine and all the things, man. So, yeah, but anyway, back to kind of the core of what we're talking about. It's really dope to see that Kickstarter, which is a platform that is about fundraising, is now partnering with um uh Tubi, which is a distribution platform. So now you have essentially a new model that's being created within creative industry where you have tools and opportunities at scale available and closer to the creators and purveyors of this medium of film. So now you can, if you can build up you may build up enough funding initially, or you may just kind of bootstrap a trailer, right? Or you may bootstrap some shorts that you can then upload to Kickstarter. Get your try and raise your $1 million or 750, 500, whatever you feel like you're gonna need to get your production done, 250, 20 grand, whatever you feel like you need to get your production done. Get your fundraising, and then their partnership has some means for those top grossing films or those films that have those high ceilings, whatever it is. I'm not sure what the qualifications are, so dig into it for yourself. But it has the ability for those films to then be streamed on Tubi. And then they also have, I guess, some resources around there being a kind of like a filmmaker academy for various folks as well. So we're starting to see as industries, as technology is flattening things. Everybody's talking about how AI is flattening things, making things more accessible. We're starting to see these companies really um, uh, shift to become do what they can to put more power into the hands of creators and people who are actually making things, which is incredibly dope. And it only comes when you have visionary leadership like the folks who are currently running Tubi and Everett Taylor over at Kickstarter. So I definitely wanted to make sure we gave some flowers to that situation because those are the shifts that we actually need to start seeing in order for things to progress in the context that we stay in right now. So like industries are literally being redesigned, and it's because you have visionary leaders at the helm that are willing to do things a little bit differently. And when I saw that partnership, I was like, yo, this is a game changer. I think I might have commented every post that I saw about it. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was from Everett's page or like, I was just like, yo, this is going to be insane. Like, I just love what that means. And I would love to see what that might mean for like visual art in the future. Like, what are galleries going to do? You know what I mean? I thought a little bit of that was going to happen. I thought there was going to be a little bit more democratization with the NFT wave and everything like that. So I kind of like leaned into that a little bit. And obviously, for various reasons, the space is just very quiet right now. But definitely, I'm interested to see how that type of model can be replicated within different platforms and other parts of creative industry. So yeah, man, I just want to make sure that we double tapped on that. We couldn't like speed past that because that was one of the things that you mentioned, but I wanted to make sure that we really kind of put a pin in that because that is a huge partnership with huge implications across creative industry, at least from my perspective.
Exactly, bro. I mean, I think that's the great point to kind of highlight that because we had another conversation earlier today within our agency meeting talking about, infrastructure and the importance of that, especially within, black art, black media, black creative production in general. And this is like one of those examples of giving young artists, young filmmakers some type of hope or some type of roadmap and pipeline to be able to grow. So you could probably like max out, somebody might be an all-star on Kickstarter that's just been like popping them out like hotcakes. Like, yeah, bro, I'm like the Ryan Coogler of Kickstarter right now, but I don't have the connections to be able to grow past this. You know what I mean? I don't have like the connections or the industry resources or just even just like the money or the funds to be able to execute at a higher level. And so this allows for, growth and to your point, distribution. And that's a huge part of art. Art needs distribution. That's how it spreads. That's why the industries like radio is important. That's why institutions like the galleries and museums are important, because people need to be able to witness it. That's how the word of mouth gets going. That's how your art spreads. That's how you make more money. And that's just how you are able to spread the story that you originated within your art in the first place. So yeah, bro, just seeing things like that and recognizing that there are individuals within the space and companies within the space that's providing that support and that platform is incredible. And I'm hoping and praying that this becomes the new norm. If say if you create some on Vimeo, I know that they have like their their staff picks. They may have something already, so I don't want to overspeak and act like they're not doing something. But just wondering, what that may look like, something in similar situation like that. If you're on Vimeo or these other platforms and able to grow, how does that like continue to build up? If you make it to the staff picks, and then it's like, all right, cool, we'll invest in you to make a full feature film, and that takes you to Netflix or Hulu or whoever. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, I do you one better. There's two things I want to touch on. One, I'll start the Vimeo thing, but I also want to back into something else that you talked about, or that was kind of based off of what we were talking about before. First of all, Vimeo released, I think it was last year sometime, that they have it now where Vimeo allow for you to set up your own, basically your own like streaming network. Like you can set up, they're set up for themselves to do like episodic stuff for creators. So imagine if, as opposed to Issa having to release what's her name, awkward black girl on
Yeah.
YouTube, and then eventually having it picked up by I Am Other, you know what I'm saying, to then be distributed on their platform. She could have gone like direct to consumer and released her own seasons and charged people for access to it via Vimeo. That's the type of thing that they kind of setting up now, or that is available to folks now, or is in development. Like they made an announcement about it, I think last year. So I'm not sure where they are in that process. It's another thing for people to research. But Vimeo was in the same vein of like, yo, you can be your own Netflix. You know what I'm saying? Like it's taking that Patreon model, but applying it to a different, a little bit of a different context. You know what I'm saying? Where it's a little less broad and a little bit more focused on filmmakers and being able to make like episodic content, or even I guess if we wanted to do the podcast that way, right? Like we get to the point where the podcast is live, like because that's the other thing is like when you talk about distribution and seeing things on Tubi and things like that. Like a lot of times I'm starting to see the crossover between these different types of media where like you have YouTubers who are making specific types of content, but now they have like a Tubi channel or a Tubi show where, they're kind of doing the same thing, but it's a little bit different. Maybe the production quality is a little bit higher or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like they got their own reality show type vibe that kind of shows almost like the behind the scenes of what they're doing in terms of making their content on YouTube. So they starting to get it from both ends. And even like, I think the Breakfast Club has a channel either on Tubi or Revolt or something where you can just like, they be having Breakfast Club episodes where it's like, you can just watch the interviews and they just be playing on TV. So the media landscape and just is changing in terms of how all these platforms are coming together and like just how content is getting syndicated and distributed. It's all the landscape is just shifting, and it's a lot to kind of pay attention to, but it also speaks to some of the shifts that we're making at Hugh House in terms of being more media forward, making more content like this, making sure that we're documenting our events when we're in and around community, because that stuff is super important, and you never know what it could really lead to. You know what I'm saying? Like you never really know. Like I just literally just popped in my head. It's like it would be crazy if like somehow we ended up with like I know you probably seen a reality show like Pawn Stars. You know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
guys that own the pawn shop and people be coming in and they be appraising the items and all that, and they got the little characters. But I'm like, what would it be? Randomly popped in my head like, yo, what would it be to have like a bunko version of Pawn Stars where we got people coming in with books and we kind of going, you know what I mean, appraising the books or talking through different editions or something. Like I don't know, bro, but it's just like you never really know where this content and where these ideas can take you. So it's important to just kind of like lean in and document things and utilize the technology that we have access to now. The other thing that I wanted to talk about though, from what you were talking about, was so we're talking about the Kickstarter and Tubi partnership, but what makes this interesting is that is again just more so available to the masses. So you mentioned Ryan Coogler and your last kind of like I don't call it a rant, but in your last thing that you just ran through last part of the conversation, you mentioned like being a Ryan Coogler Kickstarter. And it's interesting because there are all these kind of like smaller ties to industry that people don't necessarily realize, right? So if you listen to enough Ryan Coogler interviews, you'll understand that he got the money from Fruitvale to start to do Fruitvale Station because he got a grant from the Forrest Whitaker Foundation, and he was a part of like the Sundance Incubator, right? But that's not something that only the only reason well, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons that he would even be able to garner access to that is because he went to film school, and one of his professors who was at film school was like, "Yo, he's super talented. Let me tap Forrest Whitaker's people to let him know, like, yo, this guy is one of them ones." The other thing that we see or have heard of, what I heard about recently when Ryan was on his Center's press run in interviews, that just talks again about the lineage of working within a medium and people giving back within that lineage, is the fact that like and it tripped me out when I heard this, but like Denzel Washington unknowingly paid for Chadwick Boseman to go study theater in Oxford, which is insane. So Denzel Washington literally invested in giving us Black Panther and is now, obviously, we know, potentially working on being a part of Black Panther 3. So, again, it was unknowingly. The reason why Denzel did it is because Felicia Rashad, who was a professor at Howard at the time when Chadwick Boseman was there, and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and all these other kind of like crazy, like the lineage is nuts, bro. So Chadwick's at Howard. He's a I think he's some type, I think he's a film major or something like that, and Felicia Rashad recognizes like, yo, you really have the ability to act. I need you to go to acting school where they really do it. She taps Denzel and says, hey, I need you to pay for this student to go to Oxford. He says, okay, cool, I'll do it, but I don't want to know nothing about it. Don't tell me nothing about. I don't care about who the student is. I don't care. I just, here's the money, cut check, whatever. Chadwick goes to Oxford, becomes Chadwick Boseman, comes back, Thurgood Marshall movie, 42. You know what I'm saying? Jackie Robinson, like he becomes Chadwick Boseman, bro. Ends up becoming the Black Panther, and then didn't tell Denzel about it until the Black Panther premiere in New York. And like, so when you talk about like, yeah, bro, when you talk about just the lineage of people giving back to their medium, again, or creating access for other people to be able to do these things, like when we start to see these things, we're creating more opportunity for that when you have partnerships like the Tubi and Kickstarter partnership. You know what I mean? And again, that's not just Black, that's just in general for creative culture and creative industry and being able to push things forward. And that's why it's important that we stay within these conversations as Black people, because again, things are changing and we have to continue to push our perspective, to continue to make sure that not just for representation, but again, like to what I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation, in order to keep connected, you know what I'm saying, amongst one another, and continue to like, how is somebody going to know the experience of a young creative Black 20 or 30 something in the year 2025 if it's not documented right now, or if there's not a film that's kind of made about it, even if it's in retrospect 10 years from now. You know what I'm saying? Like, even being able to just different things, like there's a cowboy film coming out that seems to be like centered around like COVID times, that I just seen I forget who, it's some like major people in it too, and I'm slipping on the name of it, but it looks kind of like trippy, creepy, but it's like and it's like got some political undertones to it. I can't remember the name of it. It's slipping my mind. I can't remember who's in it, but it's like we're now in a position where we are 5-6 years past the pandemic, and now you have people that are starting to reflect on those times in film. And it's the whole thing around wearing masks, and again the culture wars that was happening on the news and all those things. It's all reflected in this, and it's in like a cowboy western type of a format. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like a set in the Midwest. It's super interesting. So we have to make sure that we're continuing to do our part as creatives and artists to contribute to the narrative, because art is what documents things outside of just there being some historical narrative or writing it down in like a book or just some oral lineage. All of that stuff is also documented within art and creativity, and we have more tools than ever to be able to do that. And it's our it's the famous quote of is it Nina Simone? don't tear me up. I think it's Nina Simone, but it's just talk about the responsibility of the artist is to reflect the times. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And that is nothing resonates more true in this moment um for me right now. Like I'm fired up, want to go make something, and we making a podcast right now, literally. You know what I mean? Like I'm ready to go like take some photos and go kick it, listen to some more music, and just continue to absorb everything that is creative right now, man. Like this is creative energy, and specifically through just again various black artists and mediums is like just really got me inspired and piped up right now, man. Like I'm just gassed for where we are and the opportunity that we have to make something, to make things and to put them into the world and to connect with people and to do it at a high level.
Yeah, man, and everything that you just mentioned was super spot on. And one of the themes that I thought about when you were talking was just like the ability for us to have agency and independence now within this space, and it's setting up the opportunity to do so, and having the access and the ability to be able to not necessarily wait on industry, and or being supported by industry at the same time, without having to be in a situation where you may lose too much leverage, where you're overstretched by the contract that you may signed or the situation that you got into, that yeah, you're allowed to make the art, but the partnership or the deal that you got in was so crazy that, you know, it kind of takes away from it, or it puts you in a situation where now you're kind of like just without leverage, long story short. And, you know, we've seen that time and time again. Like we've heard the horror stories in the music industry, specifically, especially as it relates to like black artists and things like that. And, just, seeing the ability, specifically how we're talking about film and media, where you can like, yeah, we can set up the Vimeo and really get this thing popping. We can set this up on YouTube. We can get with this grant. We can talk to this person. We can go in here, and it starts to open up a option and a pathway that may be non-traditional, but still gets you to the end result that you were looking for in the first place. So also begetting the idea and begetting the oh, you got some? What's up?
No, I just got excited because I was thinking about you could literally, and I'm thinking about obviously what we do, what homies are doing, whatever. It's like you can literally build the corporation yourself. There's enough of us like networked
Yeah.
across to build the corporations up. If somebody can scrap together the money to get the production done and make something high quality that ends up on the Vimeo platform and starts to be seasoned, or it ends up on Patreon, you could literally run your own ads on social media to get people back to watching it in the same way. You could engineer your own rollout and have BTS and do all these different things. It could all happen, you know what I mean, within a matter of time, and you don't necessarily need the corporate engine. We have all the tools, the same tools that they're using to build our own engine. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you just have to start thinking about your work in that context, and be willing to be patient to do the work to get there. And I mean, it's gonna take a little bit of sacrifice. It may take a little some help from the homies. It may take some doing some stuff at a discounted rate. It may take some of these different things, these bargaining things. But again, you handle the business on the back end, make sure everybody gets paid once the joint starts rolling, or whatever it is, whatever the distribution mechanism. But it's just thinking through the business of creativity. We have everything that we need, bro. And that's what it just hit me. Like it was just like there's nothing that's keeping you from like making a web series or making something and running ads against it. I even think about the homie Justin. That's how I found Justin. Justin was running ads for his podcast, and he was interviewing some insane people for that era in that time. Well, in any era, who he was interviewing is insane. But for that, I was just like, yo, who's this young black kid interviewing these level of people, and how did he do this? And I was thinking about it earlier. We got to make sure we have him on the pod, because
Absolutely.
like his story and what he's doing right now is just insane. And it just tripped me out. Like in terms of the world being so small, y'all being best friends was in like it cracked my head open, bro. There was like, what are the chances that like I've been listening to this dude's podcast for like 6 months because he was pushing ads for his podcast, and then I come down to Atlanta for work when we was working together back in the day, and it's like, oh yeah, nah, that's the homie, and he your frat brother, and this and that. It's like, bro,
Mm-hmm.
hold on, what? All because he had the foresight to be like, oh, I'm doing something a little different. Let me run some ads for my podcast. Like we just got to really start thinking about this differently, bro. We really got to start like not just us, but like creatives in general. We really got to start engineering this differently, be a little bit more patient, be a little bit more intentional, and really start to think about playing this game differently, bro, because the opportunities are just they're endless. You know what I'm saying? When getting things aligned the right way.
Absolutely. And what I got out of that too is like, the idea of the identity of how you see yourself in the space. Like you kind of mentioned the line of like, bro, there's nothing that these companies and these studios, these corporations doing that we can't do. And it's more so of a mindset shift of looking at yourself like, yeah, I'm the director or I may be the producer or actor, but I am still a business within this too. I am just like one of these corporations, and treating myself and treating my film and my art like that, that's great. And I think that I remember like early, like early 2000s, like Jay-Z interviews and things like that. That was one thing that I would always pick up because he would allow the creative time to make the album the creative time. But then once he got done with that, he was like, all right, cool. Now it's time to shift my mind a little bit to the business side so I can make sure that the art is seen and done at the same time because Rockefeller, you had to get it, they had to get it from the mud. They started on their own. They were independent. They knew that there was a marriage of the art and the business that needed to happen. You can't just have like high art and then like low business. It's not gonna hit the same. It's not gonna have the same impact. But if you're hitting on both cylinders at the same time, that's when the magic starts to happen. You just combust, and then now you just have create a star. And hearing you talk about that just reminded me of that thought process. And that's something that I think that even when we're doing together like with our corporation as well too, and our business is just like, yo, a lot of people may get stuck in, quote unquote, a freelance mindset, or just like, oh, I'm just a contractor for this, which is all great and fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But scaling up and just like really treating yourself and treating what you're doing as something that is on that same level as any other business that you may interact with, it changes the way that you interact with people. It changes the way that you present yourself. It changes the way that it even changes like, your price points. It changes everything. And so, having that mentality as it relates to art is just so key because without it, it kind of just leaves you in a certain space. But it also, if you do take that step and you do take that leap, it supercharges and 10x's, 100x's your entire output and your entire impact of what you're doing and creating. So I love that, man. Like that just got me piped up too. It's like, bro, I'm looking around like, man, I need to make some myself, bro.
Nah, bro, it really like I think part of it, and I mean we kind of land a plane around here is like, but part of it has really been like ever since we kind of made this intentional switch of leaning in as more of leaning into our media, leaning into our ideas and the things that we wanted to do, while also again making some tweaks to figure out how do we make a little money and stay and do the due diligence of being a business. How do we really lean into our own ideas and treat them with the same level of intention that we were beginning the business and treating like client, or what we were trying to get clients to treat the ideas that we were bringing to them with. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it really has taken us away from the mercy of client business and client strategy, and really we're starting to see a lot of momentum just around the original ideas that we have with our individual events and what we're doing with the podcast and everything related to it, man. And it all just came from, to your point, like again, looking at years 6 through 10 in the frame of how do we be more intentional about our ideas during this next 5-year period, and what can we
Yep.
do to be intentional about putting those things in the forefront, while also leveraging our creative skills to, deliver value in various pockets as needed. So, yeah, man, I'm really inspired. It all started again with a conversation that we had. It's all cyclical, man. We had that conversation. He was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm on a Tubi kick, da 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 da," and then that led me just to like look at things, and I saw Prison Song, and I saw all these different things, man. And start like I said, so I watched Green Book recently for the first time. That was streaming on Paramount, as well as just like a couple other things that just like really triggered me into this space, man, to talk about like just the importance of what we're doing and the importance of the time that we live in and the importance of the tools that we have at our disposal, and really viewing your art in that way and putting the time and intention into it and the collaboration into it to kind of get it to the next level, man. So um hopefully y'all are getting some of the energy that we kind of putting out on this, man, and really are taking yourself a little bit more serious, doing a little bit more research, being a little bit more patient, working a little bit more, working a little harder, I was about to say a little bit more harder, which is a black colloquialism. Throw that mo in there. But yeah, just working a little bit harder to push things forward, man, because it really comes down to us, and it really comes down to making the most of the moment. So, whew,
Hey,
let's get to it.
yeah, man. Let's go. Let's go. Well, yeah, man. Let's land this plane real quick, man. Any last final closing remarks on that, brother?
Man, I ain't got nothing left, bro. I left it all on the floor. I left it all on the court, bro.
Bet. Well, yeah, we appreciate y'all tapping in with us, man. This has been a great another episode of the Living Room. Definitely make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me, brother, how many likes do we need? How many subscribers we need? We need 1,000 subscribers,
Oh yeah,
4,000 watch hours.
we need yeah 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. That is the goal for the Hugh House YouTube. So we're gonna start doing what we can to upload some more content up there, some more like BTS stuff of our events and just recaps of events and like little moments and things like that, as well as like little snippets from the podcast, just in case people aren't really watching full episodes. We're gonna start to put out some more content around that. But yeah, man, we're trying to get to that 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours, so we can monetize our YouTube channel, man. So anything you can do to help push us towards that goal, whether it's sharing, liking, subscribing, it's greatly appreciated, man. Hugh House is on a mission to celebrate artistic and cultural practice, leveraging media tech and events, man. So we really appreciate y'all for being a part of this journey with us as we continue to grow and change, and as we look at year 10, as we come up on year 6 and exit year 5, man. So shout out to y'all.
Yes, sir. All right, appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all on the next one.
Peace.